This episode of Wild Women in Photography highlights some amazing women from past episodes who have truly embraced the spirit of adventure in their photography. These selected experiences are some of my personal favorites, filled with cultural adventures, magic, and cheating death. You'll hear from Alyce Bender from episode 4, Talor Stone from episode 6, Ashlei Payne from episode 21, and from episode 10, Erin Babnick. Check out the episode description for links to their work and to listen to full past episodes. Now on to this episode. Let's go. So one of the experiences that really stands out for me with you is when Captain John, is that his name?
Yes.
We went out that one early morning. Like we got to he doesn't do it anymore. I've called him and begged him.
You and me both.
You're right. I know. So I did not know what to expect, to be honest. And I think I don't even know where you found out, but you had arranged to do this boat trip with Captain John on his little
John boat.
His little John boat, like his literal John boat. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so crazy to arrive somewhere because I think maybe we had been out to the mill pond at the state park, but I don't know if I had been to like I hadn't been out in the early morning like that yet.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know personally what to expect. And here we are showing up like in the dark with random people. I love these kind of experiences because you don't know what to expect. It is that wonder, like, I wonder what we're going to do. I wonder what we're going to see.
I feel like there's a little bit of trust and faith that goes along with that. So in those situations, I'm doing, everything that my mom told me not to do as a kid, meeting people on the internet, meeting up with them in person, and then going out to strange places I haven't been before. So she's real proud of me. Yeah.
In the wilderness.
Yeah. Out into the woods with strangers met on the internet.
I know. I told my husband I'm going to do this, and he's like, who is this again? Where are you going?
Yeah.
And now he's like, okay, just turn on your GPS so I can track you. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but this particular morning, you remember this morning, we have a lot of photos from this one morning because we go out in the boat and I honestly, I don't even know where on the lake or in like geographically this was. You probably do. You probably have a pin, but, I honestly, it's like that. I just followed my GPS here and I have no idea where I'm like literally like logically at. And then all of us hopping in this boat and we're freezing cold. I mean, I'm freezing cold.
Oh no, I'm pretty sure we all were. We all were. Cause I think it was near freezing because there was frost on the deck because he was telling us to be careful getting in the boat.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And we had Aaron Martinez with us. Who else was with us? One more. Oh, you had another couple that came, right? Was that couple with you?
Yes, because we did have 5 in the boat. They were friends who had met up, who happened to be in the area. And I said, do you want to come out? Sure. They came out for a morning. Yeah.
So there you go. Alyce is like the wild adventure party planner. So.
I'll take that title.
And I will join your party. I'll be like, hey, let's party. Okay. So Caddo Lake has all of these little they're almost like alleys, like those side alleys that you would go in between buildings somewhere. There are these little places like this that help you get to bigger parts of the lake. There's these little side alleys that go everywhere. And I'm going in the dark and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? It's so creepy because it's dark and there's barely any light. And you can see the mist, like the lake fog is just coming up. And then we start going through it. Like it becomes like you could cut it almost.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And there was, times where it would be so thick, like you wouldn't be able to see the trees on either bank. But that's what's so great about Caddo at that time of year. Like that's what you go for. But that morning, it was kind of spectacular where we did get into this kind of where the river opened up a little bit more. This kind of tributary off of the lake kind of opened up just a little bit more. So we had more space between us and the trees. And as the fog is lifting, the sun is rising, and it just starts casting these ribbons of light through the trees and into this mist. And everything starts just, it's like it's lighting on fire. And very moody, very beautiful, very wild.
It is like, for me, it was like that experience was like nothing I had ever seen before. You've seen fog before and been like on land or you've driven through it, but to be out in the water where it's literally like all around you coming up from the water, even if you're on a boat or wherever, there is a sense of like wonder and magic that's
Yes,
going on there.
for sure.
And then you look through the trees because you're moving really slowly because you can. This isn't like a fast moving adventure. You're moving and you're kind of looking out and there's because it is a forest and you're looking through, you're like, what's beyond there? What's beyond there? Oh my goodness, look at what just opened up over there. I remember going out into the wider lake and all of a sudden these trees just like started to appear. It's like you're watching a movie where, I don't know,
it's like a curtain that's just kind of slowly either being pulled up or dropped down, depending on which way the fog's moving or parting.
Right.
And I think that's the great thing about being out in nature, whether it's Caddo Lake, whether it's Grand Teton, whether it's, the Faroe Islands, Alaska, wherever it might be, your own backyard many times, that there's always something going on. It may not be as dramatic as, fog rising off of a lake to open up to scenes of these, moody character type trees. But I mean, I think there's so much that goes on around us in nature to explore and to wonder about. And to me, that's why I do what I do. And I get out and I want to see as much of it as I possibly can before I return to the earth. So
I think you are. I think you're out a lot experiencing. So tell me about an experience that was like really immersive and like gritty for you, because I know that can be super influential to just be in the whole thick of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were so many moments during this trip because this whole experience of being in another culture just pushes you outside of your comfort zone at every moment. But I do have one that really stood out. For me, it was pretty early on when it was a couple weeks after we arrived. We were in the town of Kanak, and I was just walking from the store, and some person who I had not met before stopped me in the street and said, "Would you like to go to a birthday party?" And I mean, how can you say no to an offer like that? Of course, I want to go to a birthday party.
You can't. So you can't. You have to go.
Right. Like, absolutely. I'm very curious what a birthday party looks like at, this furthest community on Earth. I mean, how cool is that? So it was this little girl, I believe she was turning like 9. And the person who invited me spoke a little bit of English, and they whispered in my ear on the way there. They said, "It's tradition to give the birthday child a few little coins to say happy birthday." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Thank you for telling me, because I would not have known." And thankfully I had some coins in my pocket, and I show up and there's like the little girl with her parents sitting on the dog sled that's sitting there, and all the guests come by and there's like a line of people and everyone is giving her little coins and telling her happy birthday. So I'm so glad that I knew to do that because it would have been very awkward.
I think this is what I'm going to do for my next birthday. I'll just have a chair and then everyone can like come up to me and just hand me money. I'm just kidding.
Well, awesome. But like, that was interesting, but like, that's not uncomfortable or anything like that.
Right,
and
right.
Like, I want to be clear that no people made me uncomfortable. It's just uncomfortable to be outside of your culture, because you're pushing your boundaries.
When it's different.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, and when it's different and actually I was thinking about this. There's a reason why I like to go to new places and discover new things. It really opens up my eyes to new possibilities and then I become more comfortable with some of these things that are unknown. So I could see
Totally.
that it happening for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and you like discover new parts about yourself and new things about the world. So, the
Mhm.
part that really pushed me outside of my boundaries during this party was that, it's a party. There's dozens of people around and there's a huge plywood table that's like propped up on sawhorses that has this enormous array of traditional foods. And, if you look around without really paying attention to the details, you immediately think that you're just at a barbecue. You could be anywhere in the world. I mean, it's families and children and people wearing Oakley sunglasses and blue jeans and hoodies. There's music playing on the radio. It's like everything that you expect at a birthday party or cookout anywhere. But then once you start looking deeper, you realize, okay, well, but there's a lot going on that's very specific to this culture. So I can walk you through some of the things that were on the table. So the first thing I noticed was this soup. It's like boiled ox, which are those little birds I talked about
Mhm.
earlier. I love those, by the way. Like that definitely is my favorite thing that I ate in Greenland. It was really good. It tastes a little bit like duck, kind of. So,
Mm.
just go with that for your imagination, except there's like feathers involved. So it's a little bit more exciting to eat. And then there was dried whale, there's dried seal, there was huge slabs of matak, which especially in the summer is really important. Matak is the raw skin and blubber of a narwhal. This is like a traditional food that's consumed in all Inuit cultures, including northwestern Greenland. And it's like a cornerstone food for them. It has a great cultural significance. And anytime you're hosting something like a birthday party or a special event or a wedding, like you're kind of expected to have this because it's a symbolic community food for any type of sharing. But people also just eat it as part of their daily meal. So that is very interesting. It's such a strange texture, like rubbery a little bit, but it has a very mild flavor. I had someone describe it to me as hazelnut. I'm not so sure about that description for the flavor, but it's not bad. It's just chewy. And then there was like an entire tail of a narwhal with the flukes and everything. And the skin
So
of a narwhal is
interesting.
so beautiful with the black and the white
Mhm.
speckling. And it's just so interesting to see it just laid out there. And, of course, they also had seal meat. So someone had caught a seal that day and it was, being butchered and, consumed. It was just a whole experience. And somehow in the midst of all of this, there's also a birthday cake.
That's
So
awesome.
it was just so many interesting things going on. And so I really wanted to take photos of this event because I thought it was just such an interesting juxtaposition of modernity and tradition and really representative of where this culture is today. And so I indicated to someone that I would like to take pictures. I am not bold. I will not just start taking pictures of people without their consent. I'm not comfortable doing that. Kudos to people who are, but that's not me. And so they said, sure, but you have to eat the food first. And something you have to know about me is I wouldn't say I'm a picky eater, but it can be a little difficult for me when I travel with unfamiliar foods. And I've been in Greenland a number of times, and I had definitely been there long enough this time that I knew that I really did not like seal and had like a very strong aversion for that. But I felt that this was like that immersive moment where everyone is looking at me because like they all heard him say that I have to eat it if I want to take pictures.
Yes.
And all of these people are just staring at me. And I just, I dug in.
As one does.
I was so out of my comfort zone. It was not a comfortable experience to be consuming unfamiliar foods with an audience and to know that whatever facial expression that I make while doing this, has a great deal of bearing on their view of me. So let's just say I took it like a champ, I think, for the most part. I tried to have a very convincing face.
Wait, I wish there was someone taking photos of you.
Honestly,
Would that be awesome?
Yes. It was just, I was so out of my comfort zone, but that is true immersion. Like participating in a daily activity, being invited in and doing it with open arms, and also just such a rich experience to see all of this on display. It was the first time that I really had it all laid out in front of me, all of these traditional foods, and yet at the same time, a birthday girl with a birthday crown, a birthday cake, and there's, your typical crazy family members and kids and people laughing, the uncle who is an expert with the dog sledding whip, and he had this, and they're beautiful, they're super long whips made out of seal skin, and he's like entertaining the children by whipping cans of Coke of all things off of the ground. So you have all of these things happening where it's like, okay, cool, we're eating seal, we're eating raw whale, we are also having birthday cake and with a side of Coca-Cola all at the same time. So I'm really grateful that I had that experience. It was so unique.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that. I could picture everything that you were describing. So
I have
amazing.
some photos of the spread as well, so I can send those to you for the show notes.
Ooh, yeah, I would love that. I actually love that even with you telling this story, I was putting myself in the same space. Like I was picturing all of the things that were happening. You really are a visual storyteller.
Yeah. Well, I think though that is the story, right? Like the
Right?
fact
Yeah.
that in this community at the same time can exist this tradition that has evolved over, hundreds of years, and still you can have cell phones present and like music playing from a Bluetooth speaker, and that these things exist at the same time. There's something really beautiful about that. And also it should provoke thought, and it should provoke questions about what is sustainable, what is the future of these communities, what does this mean for indigenous cultures around the world, and it really does open up the door to the main story.
Beautiful. Hey, Brie Stockwell here. I'm the host of this podcast and the woman behind Wild Woman Photography. One of my very favorite places to photograph is in the cypress swamps of East Texas, which you heard about from my friend Bender at the beginning of this episode. This is your personal invitation to join me and a small group of women this fall for an all-inclusive photography escape in this magical location. Go to wildwomanphotography.com/Caddo Lake Photography Workshop to book one of the last spots. I can't wait to see you there. Now back to the episode. Let's go. The reason why we're talking about all these things is because you go to these places to be with the people, to photograph them, to document, and then this stuff just happens to you. And so we heard from we heard about this birthday party in Greenland with Talor. There's all going to be all these stories that you have from the people that are very specific to specific peoples. So will you tell me about this particular crazy, interesting instance?
Yes. And I need to preface by saying I try to avoid, if my mom is listening, I try to avoid these situations as much as humanly possible, I promise.
Right?
I swear I do. But then, and in the moment, they don't seem crazy to me, that word is so here or there, like crazy is crazy is crazy to someone and then not to another. And so that's for me in the moment.
Yeah, let's just say like abnormal, or maybe not abnormal, but unsafe. Like it doesn't necessarily feel like unsafe in the moment. Like we do have to use our intuition for these things. And so it sounds crazy afterwards. But maybe you were using your intuition in the moment and you're like, okay, this is okay. But I don't even know what it is. So give us a little backstory and then tell us what happened.
Okay. Yeah, intuition can bite you in the butt. So I went back to Borneo, as I said, for Christmas time this last year, like to spend Christmas and just to see my friends. It's the first time I had been back since I left very abruptly 2 years prior. And one of my closest friends who I was talking about, I did the the illegal gold mining filming with. He was also a filmmaker. He got married and had children while I was away. So he just had a little baby boy, and they were having a very special ceremony in his wife's village. And so I took a bus to go, be a part of that ceremony. And it was really beautiful. It took me about 4 or 5 hours to get there and to part of the jungle I had not been yet. So I was very excited and saw one of my best friends. And then the ceremony was welcoming the child's first steps onto the land. And that's what the ritual was basically about, to summarize it. And so since it was also my first steps onto the land, I was a part of the ceremony. Didn't know that was going to happen at all. I thought I was just going to visit my friend and be there and support and take some photos for him so he could have this moment, captured. And all of a sudden I'm in the ceremony, and this does seem to keep happening. So I'm used to it. I go with it and I do my part, and they take the chicken blood and they put it on our heads. And we have this huge moment where the whole village is in a circle in one of the main houses, the community houses. And then they bring out the food, and my best friend, he is very proud that we were eating monkey in this ceremony. They had caught a monkey, and the monkey was from the north, and someone brought it down. And this was a monkey that you could eat, apparently. It wasn't illegal to hunt it. They needed to be hunting it where they were. And he's explaining it to me. Obviously, he knows Americans and people have premonitions and not good feelings about eating monkey. It is like eating a human, some would say. It's like, it is something that I would probably go back and think more about. But in the moment, he's explaining it to me. I do not want to be insulting. I am the person that will eat whatever is put in front of me to make sure that I'm not insulting anyone. And I usually 99% of the time love the food. And this is one of those instances where I had the tiniest bite of monkey, the tiniest bite. Anyone who I've told this story to after is like, what in the world were you thinking? And I was like, this is the intuition moment. If you were there, I think you would have done the same thing. It's just like, it felt like what I needed to do. So I did it. And let's fast forward 24 hours later, maybe 48, I was completely not moving. I was basically nailed to the ground with food poisoning. I've had a lot of food poisoning in my life, and this one was like complete dizziness and nausea, like something had taken over my body, complete, like these huge gusts of humidity that were going inside my skin, and I would just profusely sweat and then stop. And they were calling it something, which I can't remember right now, but it's definitely in my notes from this trip. But it was like, they call it when this happens to you in food poisoning, and it's like the forest is entering your body and then it's trying to exit, but it's trying to wash out what you have eaten, and it's purposefully happening to you. The healers start coming over. There's no doctors in this area. They start to massage my stomach, put rubs on me, things that are forged, and also something I've dealt with before because I broke my toe when I was there the previous time. So we've been through the foraging and the oils and stuff, but nothing was fixing me. And Christmas was coming up, and everyone's like, we got celebrations to do, Ashlei. You need to get better. And I was like, I agree. What do we got to do here? Because I'm so sorry, and I do not want to be sick right now. And then we go to one of the rarest, most predominant healers in the area. There's only about a handful, you can count on your hands how many there are left in Borneo, that actually still speak with the spirits of the forest and the people like believe they have a deep, deep connection to the ground, to the trees, and to the life that's happening around you, so they can control the things that are also happening in your body and talk to it and help relieve pain and get it out of you. And so I walk into his little hut with my sister Desi, and we sit down. Mom was there too because she was helping me. She was starting to get concerned. My Dayak mom, go moms, and the three of us were sitting there. He asked me to lay down,
Right.
and then yes. Oh my gosh. And I was telling my mom I'm okay, my American mom, my real mom, and letting her know what was going on. But anyways, I lay down on the ground in his home. He starts to wave his hands over my stomach, like in a very beautiful way. It was just like, he told me to close my eyes. I'm just like kind of out of it. I'm just like laying there, like, just please make me feel better. At this point, I'm like, whatever anyone can do, just do it and let's try. And then he waved his hand over like this into like it's hard to, I know we're in audio, so, but like in a twister type tornado motion to point all of his fingers at my belly button. And then I was watching at this point, and then he just pulls this little black stone, like, I don't want to be like totally gross, but it was weird and gross to experience. So I'm just going to be totally clear and honest. It was like a rock or mixed with a lint ball of like black gunk. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. Crazy. It was crazy. He just puts it in his hand, and then he hands it to Mom, and she took it, and I'm staring at this thing that just came out of my belly button, and I could feel it coming out of my belly button. It was a very insane emotion and feeling to experience. And then I went to go grab it, which I thought was very unique. I went to go grab it because I was like, what the is this? I was like, what is this? I need to examine this. Like, all I want to do is touch it and be like, what is this? And they wouldn't let me touch it because then the energy might go back into my body. So I was not allowed to touch it. And I walked out of that house like 30 seconds later, and I was just like, what in the world just happened? I was like, Desi. And she just looks at me, I remember, and she goes, I know.
Did you feel fine afterwards?
I felt so much better in a way that was...
That's so crazy.
I do remember, this is when you call your husband, you're like, okay, need to tell you what just happened.
I got
today.
a new one for you, honey.
Yep.
In no way could you ever dream this one up. Sit down for this.
Yes. He used to travel with me, and now I'm starting as I get older to realize why he stopped.
He's like, I can't take it.
But
my stress levels
yeah.
can't take it. You do it. Oh gosh. Okay. All right. So what were you going to say? Like,
just that it's just that you ate a monkey, Ashley. Why would you do that? That was his first comment to me, was like, Ashley, what in the world were you thinking? And then everyone in my hometown village, where my like, I say family because that's just what we call each other, but my sister Desi and Mom and everyone, they were all like, Ashley, you don't eat a monkey. Like, that's not what you do. But in this different village, totally different ethics and ideas around rituals, totally different area of Borneo, they do. And so it was very interesting to experience those differences.
oh my goodness. I'm almost speechless, to be honest. I'm still picturing that thing coming out of your belly button. And the fact that you could feel it, like it didn't seem like a figment of your imagination, I think some things are just going to be mysteries to us forever,
Yeah, beautiful mysteries. I love this one.
Right.
I'm like, I wish I could relive it in a way, because I'm like, I would to evaluate this more. If I knew it was going to happen, I would have been paying a lot more attention, let me tell you, and filming.
Spoken like a true photographer, photojournalist, videographer. I wish I was filming this or had someone else do it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
because you do this exploration, and I think you like to push yourself and challenge yourself, and go find things. And actually, before that, do you go do this? Do you go explore in the Dolomites or wherever you go, so that you can find new places to photograph, and then so that you can come back to them? Is that kind of the goal for you?
I mean, yeah, very often. But I mean, sometimes I think what you're asking is, is it all sort of in the moment photography? Which is no. Sometimes I am actually out even without a camera. I
Mhm.
just because I know
Yeah.
I'll cover more ground.
Yeah. So it's
Um,
purely for the exploration without
sometimes,
needing to feel like you have to photograph
yeah, I
something.
don't put that pressure on myself. But
Right.
sometimes, I know it's a good day for it, and where I'm going, I feel like, well, let's take the camera. That's actually more often than not. I would like to do some photography, but very often I find something I'm like, this would be great in, a different season or different types of conditions, put a pin in it. We'll come back.
Awesome. You mentioned here that you went out exploring, and I guess you take paper maps with you because probably it's probably more difficult to do digitally. But I don't know all the gear that you have, but you talk about this experience in the Dolomites, the Dolomites, right? With this really cheap topo map.
Yeah, that was a bad day for Aaron.
So, yeah. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that sometimes we plan things and they go fantastic, but I think it's nice to learn too what not to do.
Yeah, well, so this was many years ago in my early days of kind of exploring areas might or might not be photogenic, And one thing that I learned early on that I liked to avoid were really technical or difficult via ferratas. A via ferratas means the Iron Way, and
Mm,
these are routes where you really need to be equipped, with the belt, and you clip onto it's called the Iron Way because there are these iron cables you can clip onto. So in case you slip, you'll catch yourself. And, some of them are pretty mellow and you don't really need to be equipped. And it's just a 30-foot section or something. You just got to get from here to there and watch your step. But some of them are very serious and you do not go there without equipment. I'm always mindful, or I had been up to that point, of which routes were labeled as via ferrata. And they're usually on a good map, they're little X's on that section. And I didn't have it's the tobacco maps that I like for that area. And I didn't have the one that was appropriate for where I was. So I had something, it was like I don't know, it was like a handout at a hotel or something, or I don't know. It was technically,
sounds legit.
yeah, it was a horrible map. I don't know where I got this. And I was with a friend and I was like, well, I think that route, I'm pretty sure that route's a via ferrata. And he was looking at the map. And he's like, no, look, there's no X's. And I'm like, okay, well, it does look kind of cool. All right, let's go check it out. And it was like a cat getting stuck in a tree. The further you go, the harder it is to go back. And I would get over one little bit. I'm like, oh, maybe it was just that one section. But that was kind of crazy. Then I'd come up on something else. I'm like, oh my goodness, really? Well, maybe I just got to get around that corner and I'm good. Then I get around that. And now I realize going back was even harder, because usually these things work very well in one direction and not so much in the other. And so it just kept going like this. And I got to the point where going back seemed even scarier than going forward. So I just kept going forward, but that kept getting worse until I finally, 4 hours into it, got to a very long descent, which I later turned out was never supposed to be done as a descent. It was fully intended to be a way up. And I'm coming down again with full backpack, one of my biggest ones, and the big tripod, everything. And I'm hanging off of these little pegs with all of this, with about oh my goodness, like maybe 1,000 feet of exposure. It was a huge drop. Like you fall, you are butter. So I just decided I was going to die that day. I was like, I was on these little pegs. My foot couldn't reach the next one down. And I'm holding on just by my arms, which are now shot because for 4 hours, I've had to use my arms extensively coming across all this crazy stuff. And then it started to snow at that very moment. I kid you not. And I was really, really terrified. And I thought that was it for me. And my only option at that point, I couldn't safely go down. I would have slipped and died. And so instead I just screamed like, to get more, because my arms were just like rubber bands at that point. They didn't want to do anything more for me, but I got one last push out of them to get back up off of that. And then I just sat there on the saddle of this part for a while, just sort of collecting my thoughts. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm going back that 4 hours of the way I came.
Oh my
because there's
gosh.
no way I'm going down that. Yeah, bad day. Really. So 8 hours into, a total of 8 hours of terrifying stupidity, really. And I survived that. But I mean, there was snow in the couloirs. There was ice and stuff. It was not a good situation.
On the way back, did the snow get harder on the way back?
No, it was just when the snow came down, that was really light, but it was snowing. But it was enough to just, make things wet. And, I'm like, oh, this is.
And then the temperature
bad
drops
situation.
and that, makes things sometimes a little bit worse. Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember like temperature issues, but I just remember thinking, okay, now it's wet and it's snowing and, this is a seriously bad situation. I was so glad when I got off of that. Big lesson learned.
Oh, we're glad you made it back from that. Cause I'm like picturing you, when like something like a thorn goes into your body and then you're trying to pull it, you can't just pull it easily right back out. Like, was it just as hard going back or did you feel like it was even harder going back?
That's a good question because now this is an old memory.
Right.
And my memory regards mostly the way out. And I think because I was realizing what I was getting myself into, and every time I was looking back, like, could I maybe turn around now? And having done the whole thing, 4 hours, at least it was a known quantity now. I knew what I was going through all the way back. And I knew it was better than going forward, which was impossible. So I just did it, and I don't remember that very well. I don't remember that.
I think because when
Actually, wait, let me just one thing I just did remember. I forgot about this. This was the scariest part. It was kind of near the end of that route back. And I remember the only way to get back, this is why I had not done it in the first part, was to remove my backpack, heave it up onto this ledge, roll it forward, and then do that with my body, and then roll into this little crevice or whatever, not a crevasse, but a little ledge under a rock, and then push my backpack. Oh gosh, it was so okay. Sorry, what you were saying. I do remember that.
No,
part.
We wanted to hear that part. So you did that, and you had someone with you, yeah?
Yes.
And did they fare as well, or were they mad?
He's taller. He's 6 feet tall, and it's a little easier for him to. He was further down on those pegs. He had gone first down that when I had to turn back. My foot couldn't reach the next peg, but a 6 foot tall man can make it. So I just, I don't know.
Abort.
Yeah, abort. He probably could have made it. He probably could have made it that way, but I couldn't.
But then what would happen if you like get down to the bottom, wherever that is, and you ran into another obstacle that was, even similar, and then could you have gone back up? I don't know.
No, I know actually now so I know what would have happened, and I would have been, had I gone down that one little bit, I would have been home free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it would have been not bad at that point at all.
Yeah, if you had gotten down.
If I could have made that next peg, which wasn't happening. So, yeah.
Oh my God.
Maybe if I had equipment, I could have just swung off of the tether and reached down. I probably could have lowered myself down off the tether, but I didn't have that. That was foolish. Should never have gotten myself into that situation.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm a little stressed out now from this story.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Right. I'm like, oh, what's the safe? What are the safe paths that I can take now? I mean, I'm usually only worried about bears or some animals coming along. I don't know.
Yeah, in the Dolomites, fortunately, that is the least of my concerns. There's nothing really that's going to eat you or kill you or hurt you there, aside from mountain goats running over top of you. But it's very rare for a mountain goat to actually like headbutt a person. It has happened, but it's extremely rare. And even though the Dolomites UNESCO World Heritage Site has a picture of a bear on it, it's kind of like false advertising. I've never even seen so much as scat. So there's not a whole lot to be afraid of except for your own good self out there.
Maybe there's just one bear in there, and that's how they
Yeah, they're token bear.
They're one token bear. Come with me on my next adventure. Be a wild woman and join me on one of my small group photography escapes in places like the cypress swamps of East Texas or White Sands, New Mexico. Go to wildwomanphotography.com for all the details. While you're there, you can check out featured wild women, episode transcripts, and more. Oh, and I'd love for you to support this podcast and all these incredible wild women in photography by leaving a review or sharing with a friend. Thank you so much for listening.